Good, exciting.
Where should we start? Today is like 38 weeks-ish. 48 weeks-ish.
You had Lucian, what, 8 weeks ago?
Yeah, he's 8 weeks and 3 days old.
And how?
I saw a photo. He looks
great. Oh, he's great. He's great. He's a very healthy baby. He does everything just like he should. He eats like he should. He sleeps like he should. I mean, babies shouldn't be sleeping through the night at this point. I mean, he sleeps about 3 hours at a time, which is actually conveniently good for breathing for me, because then I break my own sleep. You know, I would never voluntarily break my sleep like that. Who would do that? Like, let me wake up every 3 hours, you know, like I wouldn't do that. But because he's been doing that, it's actually been good for my health. Where people would, you know, obviously think the opposite. They would feel very sleep deprived and all that. And because of the method, it doesn't affect me like that. So, I mean, I get about 2 sets of pauses in a day, but it's very good pauses. I get 2 minutes pretty easily. And my control pause is 45 seconds, and after practice, it's about 55 seconds. So it's definitely come back up again. I remember actually doing a couple of pauses at 2 days after he was born, just to see, like, you know, what it's like. And immediately I could tell, wow, it's like a major pressure relief out of your body. So I didn't feel, I mean, immediately I felt like it was easier to do a pause immediately. And I mean, I could easily hold a minute pause. I mean, with some pressure, but still I could just do it, where 45 seconds was really hard before. So I think because of just everything just going as smoothly as it did, my health is in excellent condition right now. And I've already been back to work for about 2 weeks. And whenever I'm working, my husband's with him, and whenever my husband's working, I'm with him, with the exception of an hour here and there where somebody else helps us out. So we're handling everything just really smoothly. My husband likes to sleep a little more than I do, so he kind of feels the sleep deprivation slightly more than I do, but I'm a little bit more trained in the method, so it's been great for me.
So it seems that after giving birth, you know, the struggles that some mothers go through is like you felt almost like the release of it, and you came back to your full blown energy and health very quickly.
To tell you the truth, you know, lots of people struggle with having a nurse, and the baby latching right, and the baby crying all the time, and not knowing why the baby cries all the time, and all this kind of stuff. And I guess just because I'm older, maybe this kind of stuff doesn't faze me quite as much. But the thing I really struggled with was being able to see what it would be like in the future to resume sort of normal life again. And where there is like not necessarily a daily routine, but where you have to be at an appointment at a certain time, or go to work, or be on time for something. And it seemed like, and this is just how it was in the beginning, and this is just the mind work that was going on, was about 2 weeks after he was born, I couldn't see how I was ever going to be able to go back to work, because this baby needs me every 35 minutes. And I really started stressing about that. I mean, I didn't stress about what's going on and nursing, or what the baby's doing, or crying, or any of that stuff. It was mentally, I couldn't see how the future was going to look. And it was basically just the position I was in, you know, like just hormones and my mind and what's really going on. And I felt like that's really the only struggle that I had. It was more of a mental struggle of being able to see the future. And then what's really interesting is the baby changes almost daily. And every week is a completely different week, especially in the very beginning because of the rapid growth. And within 4 weeks, I could see, okay, you can pump and the baby can take a bottle and you'll be able to step away for an hour and a half to 2 hours to 3 hours and so on. And so in immediately after seeing that, it's like, okay, now I can see that, things are looking like there's a light in the tunnel, and, I'm not just gonna nurse every 35 minutes because the baby's stomach has to grow. So you nurse every 35 minutes so that the baby can only take like a teaspoon of food in at a time. But I have to say, as soon as I would feel the anxiety of that sensation of how am I ever going to go back to normalcy of some sort. I mean, it's never going to be back to the normalcy of that I had before. Obviously, it's going to be a new normal for having a baby and everything. But just doing a practice helped relieve that anxiety. So I don't sit and wallow in that anxiety. I do something about it by doing a practice. So I'm having this sensation of not knowing what the future is going to be like, and then doing a practice, finishing off with some steps, and sitting down and relaxing for about 30 minutes. And the next thing I know, I'm just enjoying myself, nursing the baby, maybe even watching some TV or something like that, where I'm not thinking about that stuff anymore. And it sort of like left my mind completely. And that was very helpful. I would say because I had an established practice, that was very easy to treat symptoms that way. And before I was pregnant, I remember doing some standing pauses. This is like a year, 2 years ago or something, and doing standing pauses. And it was really interesting because you don't sit on your bottom. So like there is like your bowl of your pelvic bowl is sort of like looser into gravity. And I remember, wow, I can see how this could be a treatment for incontinence. And so afterwards, to train my pelvic floor, I did some walking pauses, and I would stand to recover for that. And I wouldn't sit down, and I would do another standing pause. So I could really feel how my pelvic floor have to work in order to make sure that I don't become incontinent from everything being so loose during the pregnancy. So, I mean, I had a very uncomplicated vaginal delivery, and there wasn't any damage or anything like that. The amount of pushing that I did was at the very, very end. So it wasn't really like I pushed for so long that my muscles became weak or damaged or any of that stuff. After I'll back up a little bit. After my water broke, my son was here in about 3 hours. So it was very uncomplicated at that point. However, what I didn't know, and I guess it's just my ignorance on what labor is like and how there's different kinds of labor out there. I had about 36 hours of prodromal labor, which basically just means that your body's having contractions, and it's not there to push the baby and really change anything. It's just to practice having contractions. And so that was a very hard process to get through. And however, the stamina that I just had the stamina to do that. I was really adamant about never breathing through my mouth. I really made sure I didn't do any of that. I didn't do deep breathing and things like that lots of people instruct you to do. I just sort of like breathed as shallow as I could. And then when a contraction came, I just dealt with it at that moment. And then I went back to shallow breathing again. So it wasn't that it was an unbearable process. It was sort of like this massive cramping, really. I do remember there was a point where, and this is about maybe 45 minutes before my water broke, that the contractions completely changed. And I was like, okay, that's a different contraction. And it almost finished with a hot flash every time. And it was like you almost got a little sweaty from that. And I was like, okay, I can feel that's a very different sensation. And it also felt differently in my body. It felt lower, and I could feel that the baby is coming down. And because my contractions weren't 5 minutes apart for 1 minute for 1 minute long, because a midwife, because I was having a home birth, the instructions are you're having a contraction every 5 minutes that's about a minute long for about an hour, and then they head over here, because at that point they know that that's happening and that the baby's coming. And so my contractions weren't quite like that, but my midwife was actually around town, so she came by to check on me, and while she was en route, my water broke, and that's when my contractions actually went to 5 minutes, or actually 4 minutes apart from each other. So it was a rather quick transition from like having all this weird cramping to like, okay, now you're in labor, and now your water breaks. Now your contractions are coming faster, and but the rest of it was very straightforward. So I can't say like, you know, I can't say that it hurts more or less than other people, because I've never experienced anything like this in my life. But I can say that the stamina that I needed in order to even deal with contractions was something that that the method definitely helped me, because I had a significant amount of stamina in order to get through it. I mean, even the midwife and my doula was saying, you know, wow, I couldn't believe that you went through all, you know, did all that, just like how you did it. I mean, you know, my doula said, you know, normally women cuss and they, you know, change their attitudes, and, you know, the husbands basically just have to give them a free pass for this. But I mean, there was really no such thing. I mean, what was the point of all that? I mean, it was just, I just relaxed my body as much as I could and dealt with the contraction when it came. I remember the doula came in, and I labored on the toilet because it was the most comfortable place to be, because your bottom is open, and your body doesn't have to work so hard to be in a certain position. And I remember she came in and she said, when you feel the ring of fire, just hold it there and don't push through it, because that's sort of where you just, you know, sort of can damage your body some. And so I remember feeling that, and I was like, this is definitely what fire feels like. And you just sort of sat with that, and I just sat with it. Like, there's just, you know, you can't do anything about it. And the urge to push came shortly after that, and it's something I couldn't even control. And this is when you have to do it, you have to do it. And so next thing you know, the baby's head's crowning, and the head is out, and the midwife said, stand up, because, you know, I don't want the baby inside the toilet. So I stood up, and I stood up, and as I stood up, the whole baby came out. My husband and midwife caught it, and he came out crying right away. So we knew his lungs worked, and he came out peeing. So we could see it's a little boy. So it was very uncomplicated. After that, you know, it was just the process of not passing out because you're losing so much blood, and then hormones surging through your body, and the placenta came out great, got the cord. Everybody's blood pressure was great. There was no other complications at all. Like the baby slept for 16 hours after that. They did tell me that he's going to take quite a long nap. So that helped all of us out after especially 36 hours of dealing with contractions. So, and after that, you know, it was almost like we all got like a little restart. And from that point on, we just did all the normal things you're supposed to do. Nurse the baby, clean the baby, rock the baby, burp the baby, and then get sleep whenever you can get sleep. My body actually recovered really well. There wasn't very much damage at all. I mean, really, I can't even say that there was damage. And I mean, I didn't bleed out. or bleed profusely or anything like that. I took some arnica after the birth. I actually took some phosphorus the day after that, homeopathic remedy, to make sure I won't bleed profusely. And everything was completely normal after that. I didn't have complications going to the bathroom. I didn't have complications eating. I didn't have, all my processes went right back to normal. I mean, as it should be. I mean, that's just really kind of normal. It shouldn't be like, oh, you did, it's so great. Like, it just happened as it should happen.
Great. How was the baby breathing?
It's interesting to watch the baby's breathing, because, Buteyko would always say, in a healthy baby, you can see the breathing and it's super tiny and super fast. And so even if I try to use the baby as a metronome to see if I can breathe like that, it's very difficult. It's extremely difficult. So when they're in a restful state, so after they're done eating, the breathing is different. You can see the different things that happens. They're done eating, the breathing is like bigger, and then when the food is getting digested, you can see the breathing becomes more shallow. I mean, this is why we know our breathing gets deeper when we eat, right? And so it becomes real shallow, and you just see a little stomach move a little bit up and down. It's very small. Sometimes it doesn't even look like they're breathing, and you sort of like, is this baby breathing? They tell you in the beginning to put the baby on their back I guess, I mean, when they're really that little, but from day 2, the baby started lifting his head up in a prone position, like on his stomach. He started lifting, and after, I remember putting him down on his belly one time, and he just took a nap like that. And right now, pretty much the only way he does sleep well is sleeping on his stomach. I know that's very controversial. Lots of people say sleep on your side, but when a baby sleeps on their back, they don't sleep well because they have a reflex where their body wants to do that, and it keeps waking them up all the time. So sleeping on their stomach helps desensitize their gut, and it helps them sort of sleep a little bit better. I don't know. I just noticed he definitely sleeps better, and he lifts his head up and moves it and moves it. So he's really strong for as young as he is. He actually rolled over from his belly onto his back at 1 month, which I think I looked that up, and it's supposed to be about 3 months when that's supposed to happen. So very strong baby.
Very strong, yeah.
Very strong. And
Wow.
he can't, hold his head up all the time, like when I sit him on my shoulder or something, but it's a real strong hold for a while, and then he gets fatigued, and then you can see his head is bobbly or whatever. And he enjoys being worn. So we do a lot of that so we can get things done around the house, and it's great. I can do steps wearing the baby. It's very convenient.
Of him turning.
I went to physical therapy for myself to get checked out, make sure that my abdominal muscles are doing what it should be. There's not too much of a rectus diastasis in my linea alba. And so she actually, because I wanted to know if I should wear a binder and all this kind of stuff, and she said, no, you don't need that. Just work your muscles. You can do a crunch. Don't do crunches, which is not a good thing for postpartum for quite some time, because you can separate that line more. And just went over some core exercises, which I know, but sometimes it's nice to have somebody else look at you. And so then I asked her a couple of questions about Lucien, and I said, well, what is his hips like? I was personally born with club feet, and I wanted to know if he had club feet or anything like that. And she's like, nope. Everything looks great. Your baby is very healthy. She said the most important thing that a baby needs to do is to do tummy time and be on their belly. And so I came home, I looked up on the internet, and I was like, when is a baby supposed to do tummy time, because he's been sleeping on his stomach, but I haven't been specifically putting him on his stomach. And it said, no, from day 1, you put the baby on their belly for 3 to 5 minutes at a time, maybe up to 15 minutes a day. So, you know, like a like a trainer, I was like, you know, you need to put the baby on their belly 5 minutes and set a clock. You know, if he cries too much, I'll pick him up. But we did tummy time, and you know, they fuss a little bit when you do that. They don't love it. So then about 3 or 4 days later, I put him on his stomach, and then I ran into the kitchen to get a snack, and I came back out and he was on his back. I was like, oh my gosh, I missed it. So then I put him back on his belly, and then I videoed him and see if he flipped 3 more times again that morning. So I was like, wow. And now I can barely put him on his stomach because he just wants to flip over. So now, I mean, he puts on his, so it's a good thing he pretty much sleeps on his belly. And the little bed that he's in has got little bumpers on it, so he can't flip over. So he has to be on his belly, and it kind of forces him to stay on his belly and to do his exercises. But very strong. He's starting to push up now with his arms too. So he's like starting to put his arms down and like pushing up a little bit. He realized I can use my arms to do these things. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of how that little flip happened. So I'm glad he's meeting milestones. He gained weight really well. He was born at very average weight, 7 pounds 2 ounces. He was 21 inches tall, and I don't know how tall he is now. I haven't measured him, but he has systematically gained weight. So now here at 8 weeks, he's 12 pounds. So he's gained quite a bit of weight in the last 8 weeks. He only lost 2 pounds because all babies lose a little bit of weight and then gain it back again. So 2 days later, he was 2 pounds lighter. Oh, 2 ounces lighter, excuse me. Yeah. 2 ounces, sorry, 2 ounces. No baby can lose 2 pounds in one day, but it was 2 ounces lighter, and then he just started gaining weight. He eats really beautifully. When he goes, you can tell when a baby goes through little tiny growth phases, when they have they nurse more often, when they get a little fussy and they want to eat a little bit more often. So you just offer as much as they want to eat. When he stops eating, then he stops eating. You don't, you know, force him to eat. He's not a gassy baby at all. So it doesn't have a lot of spitting up and vomiting and things like that at all. So yeah, he's, I mean, I couldn't be more thrilled having a healthy baby. It's really all I wanted, to make sure I have a healthy baby.
Of course.
He was born with some hair, and both Tyler and I were born without hair. So we were both born very bald, but he has some hair. So
interesting, right? So this thing that Christopher commented on during the podcast about
the
birth,
babies being,
he said babies being born with more hair.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I've seen babies born like with tons of hair, having lots of health issues too. So I don't know what exactly it is, but I was born with no hair.
Well,
and
the remarkable thing was that the hair is black.
Right.
So was it dark or was it light?
Yeah, it's actually my color hair. So it was this color. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I did see the picture you sent, Martha, about it. I was like, it's definitely not that thick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's what was reported, and it happened to one of the students like that.
Yeah.
And then it fell out, and then it came back blonde.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, both mine were born with lots of red hair, and then they both came out more blonde. I mean, the younger ones.
I remember my sister's daughter was born with dark hair, and she actually had dark hair for a while, and then it fell out, and she has completely blonde hair and blue eyes. So it looks like his eyes are getting lighter and lighter. So you don't really know what the eye color is until like maybe 6 months or so, but it looks like it went from the gray blue to now a little lighter than that. So it's a possibility. I have green eyes. My husband has brown eyes. So there's a lot of possibility to be any color, really. It's interesting. He's already grown out of, he grew out of his newborn stuff in a month, and he is now in clothes that's 3 months. So he's definitely a nice big baby at this point. So we'll see how he how he does.
Great.
I remember the midwife checking all the reflexes and like when you put the baby on their feet, they want to stand up, and he thinks he can stand. He really likes to do that. So he really pushes his feet down and wants to and he maneuvers himself with his feet a little bit. So he's on his belly, he will maneuver forward like a little worm. And I think all these things, are completely normal. I don't think it's especially now it is really early because, all this kind of stuff. I just think it's not delayed or anything like that. That's what I think.
Well, I mean, his Adgar would have been 10 when he was born.
Yes, it was 10. Yes.
It's remarkable, really.
Yeah.
You're not exactly a young mother, so
you've
gone very smoothly.
Yes, I was very, very grateful for that. I was very grateful to have a midwife that didn't give me a hard time for being 40, and also wanting a home birth, and everybody being calm around me. My doula was very experienced doula. She's been out over 250 births, and she knew all the right things to say, and she's seen it all. And my midwife was actually really young. She's 26. She was a midwife for about 10 months before I actually gave birth. She just celebrated her 1 year. I've been a doula. I've been a midwife for a year, licensed midwife. And she was excellent. Palpation was just great. I know a little something about palpation and how to feel the body and how to sort of, I could just tell she really knew what she was doing. And I never felt uncomfortable. I just felt like there's somebody that's an expert that knows what's going on. And in her experience as a midwife, she has seen some very interesting cases. She's seen 3 breech births born at home. She's seen some things. I was like, okay, this is no problem. My body can do this. I trust my body, and I have a good team that is helping me out.
What was their feedback in terms of comparing? They've seen so much. Their assistants, they assisted through so many births, and as you say, they have seen it all. So
yes,
maybe they have a reference as how you did in comparison to what's normal.
I think what I did is somebody who was healthy and went through the process the way you should go through it. That's how I went through the process. Now, there's other people that had more complications, whether it was blood pressure issues or sugar issues, where if you have the sugar issues or eat too much sugar in your pregnancy, your baby can be very large, and that can cause complications.
Interesting.
And I ate just what I needed to eat, and I ate properly in this pregnancy. I really did not use pregnancy as a license to eat, or saying I'm eating for 2 people. I really only upped my calories a little bit, about 300 calories a day. And I actually still practice some intermittent fasting. And I wouldn't eat before 11 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't eat again until 8 o'clock at night. I'd be done eating. And it's not like I'm eating about 2 meals a day. But my calorie content was good. I eat high caloric foods, high fat. So it helped the process along, help keep you satiated and help keep enough calories going. And but I think the process of dealing with actual pain is where some people just don't deal with pain very well. And I could just deal with the pain. So I think that's sometimes in the comparison way, how one person could be one way and how one person could be a different way, because they couldn't handle the stress of the pain and it overwhelms them. And I think something else that they said too is that because that prodromal labor was so long, 36 hours, a lot of times at that point, at the end of it, woman is like, give me an epidural, or give me something to so I can just get through it. I have some friends who have said that to me. It's like, I couldn't do it at this point anymore. My body was exhausted. But because I had I had the stamina to get through it. I think that maybe is something that made a difference. So I think for any woman who was healthy and went through the process normal, I think we're about on the same level there. And if you had some complications, it was maybe a little bit more difficult process and you wanted more intervention or needed other things. I didn't want anybody to touch me while I was laboring, though. It's very different than other people, especially for me being a touch therapist and massage therapist. It's kind of strange, but I didn't want anybody to like come over and rub my shoulder and like, you know, rub my back or something like that. I'm like, I'll just be over here and you be over there, but be over there though, so I can see you. The stamina to be able to get through it all, I think, is something that helps you in that process. But it's also a significant amount of stamina that you need afterwards. And if you're worn out from the one thing, you might not be there for the next thing. And I would say that if you wanted to have a baby, you should do this method before you have the baby, so you can get established and clean your body out before. Because if you had to go through birth, then go through that postpartum part where you have sleeplessness, and going through the Buteyko method at that point would be just, it would be too hard. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, because it's always good to have your body heal and bring more CO2 in the body so oxygen can get distributed better. But the process itself and learning this process is hard. So if you're already going through a hard time and sticking some more hard stuff on top of that, that would be very overwhelming. And so I would say definitely get established in this method well before conception, so that you get to the pregnancy process well, because I never had any morning sickness, and I know that has to do with the corticosteroid. And some people just have a real big struggle with that. And then the next struggle is fatigue. And then the next struggle is being really large and dealing with indigestion and things like that. I had none of those things. I didn't, all the way until the very end, people saying your back is going to start hurting. And I would say my back almost felt better in pregnancy than it does without being pregnant. You know, it was a really excellent, tight, like my back was great. I didn't have trouble sleeping, even though I did have to wake up to go to the bathroom and drink water in the middle of the night. So but that's completely normal. It's not like, oh, I can barely sleep 2 weeks before I see. And that's another thing, you know, if you had to go into 36 hours of labor or something like that, and you're already exhausted from 2 weeks before not being able to sleep properly, then the birthing process would probably be even harder. So, I mean, there's all these benefits to having this method established before you even think about becoming pregnant, because it's going to help you it's going to clean your body up before, it's going to make you epigenetically more sound. Your DNA is going to methylate better before you even start. And then during the pregnancy, it will help you in all the different phases that you have a struggle in. If there's morning sickness, or if there's body pain, or if there's fatigue, or if there's swelling. I didn't think I did, I didn't swell very much in this pregnancy, but I could immediately notice. So 2 days after I gave birth, the midwife made another visit. We weighed the baby, but we also weighed me. And I weighed 20 pounds less 2 days later. And I know, I mean, it's like quite an incredible feeling to weigh one weight one day and then another weight on another day. It was quite, you know, it was quite extraordinary to lose that much weight, and immediately felt better. But you just have swelling in areas in your body where the uterus is still healing and all that kind of stuff, and where there's looseness of the abdominal wall and stuff like that. But other than that, everything went like really swiftly back to normal again. And in 2 weeks after that, I felt like I have like sort of my body back in a way, you know, with the exception of nursing.
You're looking, I mean, I'm just looking at your upper body, like your shoulder. You're looking athletic. I mean, you are.
Well, I don't think I really, now remember, my work is very physical in my arms. So like, I think it's not like I have to constantly work my arms out or anything like that. But also you give birth to baby, you're constantly holding the baby with your arms. You're gonna work your arms.
Yeah.
You're like my bicep. I have to stretch out my arms so like, you know, my biceps is tight from holding the baby up. But even all that, you need a lot of stamina and to get going after that, you know. And that's why I say have babies when you're young, because you know you have all the energy. But I have just as much energy at the age of 40, and I don't intend for that to be any different ever. I'm going to keep that up. So the method is really helping sustaining my level of stamina and my level of energy. So I don't
Well, you
feel like
are young, independent of the number.
right, exactly. And
Your
I think, you know,
physiology
that's
is
why
working
people
like
say,
the physiology of a young woman. And
yeah,
many young women
exactly.
actually have enormous difficulties with what you just
Right,
gone through, and
right.
they don't do very well. So
And you know, lots of women experience postpartum depression, and I think, you know, a lot of that has to do with, well, maybe even drugs. Pitocin is really something that's a big driver in that, which is, you know, very grateful I didn't have to have any of that stuff. But I just think that the amount of fatigue and the amount of stress that a pregnancy puts on your body, no wonder it is, you know, you get depressed or you get, lots of people talk about postpartum anxiety, actually. I belong to a group on Facebook where women talk about all sorts of things that they experience after birth. And there's been a couple of posts that when women talk about postpartum anxiety. And I can see that if I didn't have the method to help me out worrying about what the future was going to be like, I think I would have like had a lot of anxious thoughts mulling in my head. But I think that the depletion of your body is what eventually causes the depression. And I would say that if you have an established practice, you're not going to have any problems with that. It's just not going to be, you're going to be able to, if you feel those kind of symptoms, you're going to be able to treat it. And it's not anything that's going to affect the baby.
also in relation to the method, I guess, I mean, I was actually going to ask you about emotions attached
Right.
to that, because obviously this is an emotionally very rich experience. So perhaps there's the other side of it, the positive emotions, the profound happiness and profound even pleasure of having the baby
Right.
finally with you. And
Yes. Yes. And, you know, it's really interesting because I thought about it one night because he was so little and he's such a little nugget, you know, like in the very beginning. And, you know, when he wakes you up every 35 or 45 minutes, and you like basically just started falling asleep and having a small dream, and then he wants to wake up again. And, you know, I would say my non-reaction to that was great. Like I didn't react to, now why are you up again? Like, oh, and then thinking, woe is me, like I am not getting any sleep, or why am I not sleeping, and all this kind of stuff, where I just could look at him and say, oh, look how little you are. And you hold him and he's so little. And that time is so short that I didn't want to go, oh, but when you're bigger, then it's going to be easier. And when you're doing this and you're sleeping through the night, then it's going to be easier. And I just appreciated the not sleeping and the seeing him at, you know, 4 or 5 times a night to wake up and feed and nurse. And the enjoyment of even though I'm not sleeping, it's look at all this time we get to spend together. And it's a good way. Normally you just talk about the bad symptoms or something, but if you can have a non-reaction to those experiences, you get to experience the real true beauty of the nursing all night long. And I mean, your teenage son is not going to want to nurse all night long. That's going to be this very short period of time where, you know, you get to experience that. And being able to like experiencing that has really been quite awesome. It's really quite awesome.
Well, I think
beautiful.
they're very special. And I remember having a kitten, and I was really disappointed when the kitten became a cat, and it wasn't very long.
Yeah.
That's why people get little dogs, Martha, because they look like they're puppies for the rest of their life, and they kind of act like it too.
No, but I always think having the baby, you have to be with it and appreciate every minute of it because it's not long.
Exactly. And I mean, he's so sweet, you know, like, yes, you feed him and you dry him and you rock him and you burp him and you're like, why are you still crying? And then you go, okay, all we got to do is we just got to walk around now. And then we got to bounce on the ball a little bit, like I'm bouncing like this. And, you know, that's not going to be forever. I remember a friend of mine said once about, she had a son and her son was still in diapers at the age of 3. And her husband's like, he needs to get out of diapers. She's like, well, he's not going to want to wear diapers when he goes to kindergarten, or he's not going to wear diapers when he graduates high school. So she just rode out the diaper wave, like, you know, he's going to just be ready when he's ready to do it. And I think if you're not forcing something into it, what it's not, then you get to appreciate the moment for what it is.
Yeah, well, that's the key to everything, really. If you can appreciate what is, then life's a lot easier.
Yes. And I think that when you do a practice, it immediately brings you back into the moment again, where you're not thinking about past or future. And it's nothing like having a baby to really keep you in the present moment. You're like, oh, what are we going to do when this and this and this happens? Well, it's not happening right now. So we're just doing this right now. We're sitting over here nursing, or we're sitting over here, you know, just rocking or being. And it's much more pleasurable to be in that moment at that time. I always have luck. It's easy. My milk production is really good. Very happy about that. And I have, it's very, I don't know if that's necessarily the method, but I would imagine that vasodilation is important. I am not used to drinking this amount of water though, because you got to drink lots of water in order to nurse, because your body sort of dries up a little bit. But you can almost, even doing a practice, you can almost feel, you know, processes working in your body. You're like, I can feel like my body's making breast milk while you're doing a pause. So it's great to even have that, to be able to make sure that, I mean, I have to have enough milk to feed my baby, you know. And breast milk's the most important thing that they can have right now. It's the most perfect food a human can eat. So, and the other thing is that, you know, you need to have quality of breast milk. So you can see, like, when you put breast milk in a fridge, that there's a layer of fat that sits on top of it. It's a small layer of fat, but it's really there. It's very creamy breast milk, where it's not, you know, there's lots of different qualities of it. And I've noticed that having a higher fat diet is definitely something that improves that. Well, it's not that much cream, but you can see it floating on top, you know, it's like, yeah. But it's yeah, very, very happy about it all.
When you talk about feeling that your body is producing the breast milk, it makes sense in the sense that with the Buteyko method, like, you really feel things going on in your body when you're doing the poses that are happening in real time, especially when you, for example, you're treating symptoms, whether it's with shallow breathing or doing the poses, that you can really feel that something's going on in the body in that particular area that is relevant to the practice that you're doing. So it makes sense that that you actually feel that in real time, and that is helping you in terms of breastfeeding. Right.
That's another struggle women have, is not only you're dealing with exhaustion and all this kind of stuff, but now you're also having to, you know, make breast milk, so, and nurse the baby and all that kind of stuff. It's very stressful. It's a very, very stressful process for the human body to go through. And I would say that you better be prepared to get through this process, especially if you're going to be older doing it. So you cannot take this in the couch like, oh, I'm just going to pop this baby out. Now, I know some people, I have a friend who's had 8 children, and she just sort of like pops them out, but she eats properly, and she has, you know, a good network of people that surrounds her, very healthy person. And it is, I mean, she just had her 8th kid at the age of 44, and it's very healthy. She had a very easy recovery, but she respects the process of pregnancy and birth. And I think you need to have that. You need to have respect for the stress that the body is going to go through to do this. Yeah,
Definitely. There's so many layers to it, and so in time, and you know, the physical, the psychological, everything.
yeah.
It's and it comes down to, so what you are saying comes down to, when we did the episodes in the podcast, that was the conclusion that we arrived to, that mothers who want to have babies, they have to do the method before, and get ready,
Right.
get their bodies ready before pregnancy. Yeah, not before
Right.
birth, but before pregnancy. And that's
Right.
what you are
Well, I
reflecting
think
upon.
that, you know, I could second that, because I had 2 babies without having done the method. I was younger, which helped. I was in my early 30s and mid 30s, slightly younger. But the birth was more difficult, more painful, I'm sure, than it was for you.
Right. I mean, contractions are still a contraction. It's a hard thing. But actually, 3 weeks after birth, I had a clogged milk duct. I didn't know. I thought it was mastitis or something. It was horrible. I haven't felt this bad in 15 years of my life. I mean, at some point I felt like, I mean, I could equate it to a kidney stone of the breast. I mean, it's really a painful thing. And I was thinking, while I'm going through the process, and like, I would rather birth him again. That was just a horrible pain.
The pain in your breast.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And
it's the worst ever.
It's the worst. And something about a contraction I can say is that you have a contraction and it's painful in the moment, and then when it's over, it doesn't hurt. So you don't have a hurt at that point. You're over it. So even when the baby crowns and comes out and you feel the burning ring of fire, you sort of, okay, but this is not going to be forever. When you have a milk duct that's all locked up, you're like, when is this going to go away? You know, this is horrible. Like dealing with it for 24 hours. And it was just my inexperience in nursing and latching and putting the baby in a certain position that caused the milk duct to kind of get clogged up, because a little piece of skin was growing over the opening of the milk duct. And I had to make sure that stays open by the way that the baby nursed. So, I mean, I even had a lactation consultant make sure I do these things correctly. That's why it's also important to have a good team. I mean, I had a good team during the pregnancy with Dr.Buteyko. I had doula, I had midwife, I had a physical therapist. I had a rolfer. She actually did the 10 sessions with modified versions of me being not pregnant, to make sure that my body is as orthopedic as it possibly could be. I mean, I had to do all these things, I guess, not necessarily maybe because I'm older, but I just wanted to have the best experience I could. So if there's something I could do, is something that I was going to do. And I never wanted to turn around and say, I wish I did more of this, or wish I did more of that, or so on and so forth. Because you cannot control what happens at the end of the day. But I can't turn around and say, oh, I wish I did this instead. I don't have any of those regrets.
Having not done the method, my problem was the longevity. Like, by the time the second baby was 15 months old, my joints were aching, my muscles were in pain, I was suffering with fatigue.
Yes.
That was the thing. It's like, I got through the births, I got through the nursing, I got through the early days. I did it with 2 of them, but after the second one, I couldn't recover. And that's what I find happens with women who come having had a few children. They've got chronic fatigue, they're exhausted.
You know, if you read Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, it's written by Dr. Price, and it's the book that the Weston Price Foundation sort of founded themselves on. And I've been following the dietary principles for over 13 years. And I mean, it helped me stay a very healthy person even before I did the Buteyko method. And I would say that's probably something that masked a lot of my symptoms, as far as like having a lower control pause, but at least I ate properly. And so, however, when he the process of birthing and procreating in these villages that Dr. Price went to in the 1930s, he realized, you know, they have an almost respect for the birthing process and for the pregnant mother, and how the pregnant mother has to have these foods, and how when they give birth, they also need to make sure that they don't get pregnant again for another 3 years, because it takes that long for the body to really recover itself. So, and it's not like, you know, with modern technology and things like that, we can probably recover our bodies faster because we have easy accessible to the nutrients and stuff like that to build our body. So people could probably have children sooner, but every person I know that had a lot of children that did not respect that time frame have lots of problems, whether it's orthopedic or whether it's chronic fatigue. And I have noticed that myself too, Martha. I mean, you see it because you've seen so many students come in. But yes, pregnancy takes so much out of you that yes, it brings your control pause down maybe every single time. And then by the time you had your fourth one, then you're like a disaster zone.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to take them through their teenage years. And that's something that, you know, you noticed on yourself. Like, I could barely sleep 4 hours a night. You know, it's a hard process. I mean, lots and lots of people end up with Hashimoto's. The thyroid is just done.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that transpires from everything that you're saying is that knowledge really helps. And in this regard, if you really manage to, as a woman, to keep your health in check, you know, even at 40, you can have actually a better experience, because what it seems to be the case with you is that you really have acquired a lot of knowledge about your health and how to go about it. And you also have a network of people who are probably professionals that have been able to help you.
That's true too. And I think, you know, there's some benefits to being 40 and having a baby. There's so many things that just don't faze me like it would faze somebody younger. I mean, if I had to look at my younger version when I had a miscarriage at 27, I had to look at my younger version having to deal with all these things. I don't think I would have been able to do that birth that way. I wouldn't have been able to. My mental attitude would have not been there. And yes, maybe your body bounces back sooner, faster, or whatever. But I think there's a huge mental aspect when it comes to all this kind of stuff. Not being reactive being one of them. And I recently read a book called Hunt, Gather, Parent, written by a woman, and that went to look at how they raise children in rural, like in tribal areas. It was the Inuit, it was the Aztec, and it was the Hadza hunter-gatherers in Africa. And she went to those 3 tribes and she lived with them for a couple of months to see how do they raise their children. And there's a big difference between how they raise their children as opposed to how we do it in the West. And one of the major things that I got out of the book is it is not allowed for an adult to be reactive towards a child, to react to the child. Like, as soon as you do that, some other person in the village will like come take care of your kid for a while so you can control your emotions. You cannot be an emotional person. You cannot scream at a child. Doesn't matter what the kid's doing. So the kids are growing up around adults that are non-reactive to them. Like, and when I say reactive, I don't mean like they don't react to things that are good and so on and so forth. I'm saying that the kid spills juice on the ground and the mother has a tantrum over it. You know, that this doesn't happen. Or like the baby is crying or something like that. And we have some crying going on right now.
There we go.
Oh, my husband's helping him out. but it's the non-reaction to it. And I think as a younger person, I had much stronger reactions. I'm very reactive to my environment, and I can exercise, I can have control over my reactions at this point. I'm not saying I don't react to anything, but I definitely have a much stronger control over doing that. And I think being able to raise a kid with that attitude, sets a kid up differently than when you're young. Now it's all about the different experiences that human souls want to have, but that's a big benefit to being older.
Great, Renate.
Hold on. Let me go. Hold on. Let me go get my baby.
Okay.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second.
Oh, hello.
This is Lucien.
Hello, Lucien.
Look at them.
Look
Yeah.
at
Shirt says I'm new to the crew. So that's a little much.
Start choosing your Olympic team, yeah?
That's right. Look, he's like, why did you take my milk away from me right now?
It's so beautiful and healthy and full of character, and life is.
Yeah, see, you can see his hair looks like a little old man, so he's got hair in the back.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that much hair in the front. But that's something, as he was crowning, I could feel, there's hair. He's coming out.
Really great testimonial that you gave us. Thank you so much, by the way.
Absolutely. I am really appreciative of being able to, not necessarily be a guinea pig, but like I'm really grateful that I had this method to help me through this process and to feel confident in the process. It improved my confidence in myself. I'm like, I can do these things, I got this method. It's going to help me out. I'll be okay. And
Yes.
And I would say we should do another follow-up in a year and see, just after his first birthday or something like that. And we can talk about different milestones and things like that he has reached and so on, because there's a lot of health that's expressed in those things. I mean, they change milestones now for children, but I just think if we could just see, like, he walked at this month and he did this at this month and started talking and did these things. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And we have two stories. We have your baby's stories, and we have you just started your journey as a mother as well. And that's something we covered in the podcast, and it will be great to follow that process. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, you guys. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
So there you have it. If you want to have a great pregnancy, do the Buteyko method before you even decide to do it. And if you're already pregnant, it's never late to start. Do it within the first 3 months, and you'll be doing much better in your pregnancy. You can find out about this method in where you can find about webinars that you can have for free, and also about the workshops that are given constantly. And you can do it also in other languages like Greek, Hebrew, German, Spanish, Italian. Find out about it in learnbuteykoonline.net, and we'll hear you in the next one. Goodbye.